Hello everyone, I'm Dr. Marty Ross, and this is another Conversations with Marty Ross MD tonight. I'm seeing many familiar faces here, and it's good to see many of you back again. And I also see a lot of new people too. The way these webinars work, you get to write questions to me, and so each webinar is different and actually is created by you. During the webinar tonight, I will be doing some screen sharing so I can show you some of the helpful articles that we have at our information website called Treat Lyme and Associated Diseases. Many of you know about that because that's how you found out we're able to sign up for the webinar tonight. I am doing a recording of the webinar tonight, and tomorrow morning that recording will be available to you. Look for an email to come to you in the morning, and it will come through MailChimp. So if you have registered for the webinars, you would have been added to our email list. However, you need to tell MailChimp when they send you an email asking that you be added to our email list that you want to be added. So if you did not do such a thing, make sure you do so. Otherwise, you won't get the email from me tomorrow morning saying that the recording is ready, okay? And then again, that email link, that email will include a link to the webinar too, all right? Now, many of you want to ask questions, and the way you do that is there is an area over to the left hand, or actually right hand, I'm right left disoriented, the right hand side of the screen where you can write questions to me. You're going to post it as a chat, and once you post it, it will no longer show on your screen, but know that I actually have it. And throughout the webinar, I will post your questions so everybody can see, okay? So let me just see if we got questions already. It looks like we do. So let me go ahead and post up the first question here. So bear with me here, everyone. It's a little bit of an awkward system to do this, but I've gotten away. I think that works fairly well, but it takes a little bit of time to pull it up. So hold on here just a minute. Rats, that's not working the way I wanted to. There we are. Okay, so let me post this first question here. Okay, so this first question is from Chris. And Chris says, hi, I've been treating Babesia with Mepron and Zithromax. Oops, I don't think that this is showing through. Let's do that again. Okay. Hi, I've been treating Babesia with Mepron and Zithromax daily for 7.5 weeks. Increasing Mepron 3,000 milligrams didn't create a Herx. Herx daily, no improvement yet, with increased head pressure, off balance, GI problems, and vivid dreams. Artemisinin, trimethoprim, doxy, amoxicillin, Malarone, Cipro have no effect. When Flagyl is added to the Mep-Zith, symptoms increase. Should I add Flagyl to the Mepron Zithromax or stick with Mepron Zithromax as it is already causing a Herx? Will creating an even bigger Herx speed things up? Gabapentin offsets my Herxing with Mepron Zithromax, but not when additional meds are added. Will taking gabapentin affect eradicating? I think there may be more to this question here. Eradicating Babesia will one Herx until last bugger is dead. Thanks, Chris. All right, let me go back here. Okay, so hold on, I'm having a little bit of an awkward time here. There we go. Okay, so Chris, thank you for that question. And everyone, I'm going to talk about Babesia and what happens when you treat Babesia. So first of all, Chris, the antibiotics that you're using, the Mepron, as well as Zithromax, is one of the ways that you can treat Babesia. And the dosing you're using of 750 milligrams 2 times a day of Mepron, along with 500 milligrams, I believe twice a day you must be doing. Yeah, 500 milligrams probably twice a day of the Zithromax is in a treatment that can work quite well for Babesia. And I find that it works probably around 85% of the time, all right? It's what I call a tier 1 treatment. All right, now, the Flagyl that you have tried to add in I don't think actually is a useful antibiotic for Babesia, but it is a useful antibiotic for treating one of the 3 forms of the Lyme germ, and that form is something called the cyst form. So as many of you know from reading Treat Lyme and Associated Diseases, our Treat Lyme book, and also from these webinars, the Lyme germ actually exists in you in 3 forms. One is the spirochete that looks like a corkscrew. Another form that lives inside of your cells, intracellular Lyme, and the microscopic cyst form of the Lyme as well too, okay? And the flagell treats cyst Lyme and probably treats intracellular Lyme. Now, when you added the flagell into your treatment, the reason you had what looked like a Herxheimer reaction was not from killing Babesia. It was actually from killing Lyme germs, all right? And in fact, the Zithromax that you're on, coupled with flagell, is a full Lyme germ treatment as well too. Lyme germ is Borrelia. Zithromax treats intracellular Lyme and spirochete Lyme, while the flagell is treating cyst Lyme and intracellular Lyme too. So when you put the flagell in, you have a full-scale Lyme germ treatment as well too. My experience is typically people, when we treat Babesia, don't get a true Herxheimer reaction. What they may get, though, is some increased air hunger and possibly some increased sweating. But they don't get the typical symptoms of a Herx that we see with Lyme. Lyme Herxheimer reactions, as many of you know, leads to increased pain, increased fatigue, sometimes more cloudiness of your thinking. Basically, your Lyme symptoms all get worse with a Herx, okay? Now, many of you, if you probably know what a Herx is, but just quickly, as you start killing Lyme germs, most of your symptoms may get worse. We call that a Herxheimer reaction, and that is due to the immune system making more inflammation chemicals called cytokines, okay? So back to your question, Chris, you don't need, in fact, probably the reason that you were quote unquote Herxing was not from treating Babesia, but was actually from treating Lyme with the flagell. And I think you're on a good treatment with what you're doing, okay? Now let me make sure I got your whole question answered here. Oh, I think I did answer your question. All right, so let me do a quick screen share here, everyone. I want to try this again to see if I can actually do it correctly this time. Let me see if this will work here. That didn't work. I'm having a bit of an awkward time. What am I doing here? All right, so let me do a quick screen share here. And now I've lost myself. Where am I? Sorry, everyone. I'm having a bit of a technical problem here. What did I do with that? Well, that's not working out. Hold on here just a minute. Okay, I'm going to make it so I can show you something within the Treat Lyme book here. All right, so let me try to do a screen share again. All right, so this is the Treat Lyme book, okay? And within this is where you're going to find all the helpful information that I'm talking about tonight. Most of what I'm going to be talking about with you, we've written articles about. So in terms of how do you treat Babesia, what are good Babesia treatments? I'm going to look into our chapters here. And there's a chapter that we have on treatment plans, infection treatment plans, okay? And there is one on treating Babesia, which is called Kills Babesia. Where is it here? Kills Babesia, a brief guide, okay? So that what I'm showing you is one way that you can navigate through the book here. All right, now in this article, I basically tell you how to treat Babesia, all right? But one of the things you want to do is make sure you're boosting the immune system by following the first 9 steps built into our Lyme disease treatment protocol called the successful treatment recipe, all right? And I'll show you where that is here in a minute. But you also want to use combination antibiotics. You want to use more than one antimicrobial at a time, all right? So I break these into tier 1 and tier 2 treatments. Tier 1 treatments work 85% of the time. And one of the groups is atovaquone, which is Mepron that you were talking about. I usually use it as 750 milligrams twice a day. And as you can see here, you can combine it with Zithromax, which is what you're doing, okay, Chris? And I think that's a good way to go. There are other treatments here too. There are tier 2 treatments. One of those is an artemisinin, an herb that Chris mentioned, and that works about 75 to 80% of the time. There's another herb here that I like in here too called Cryptolepis, and it also works about 75% of the time, okay? So take a look here later and you'll see how it is that I suggest that we treat Babesia, all right? Let me go back here now. Okay, so Chris, thank you for that question here. Let me get rid of that. All right, let's see here. I've got another question that I'm going to post up here. That is, hold on here a minute. Let's see. All right, bear with me here, everyone. I got to pull up a document to put this on. A little technical difficulties here tonight as we get started, but I'll get these ironed out here in just a minute. Okay, so this is the question from Donna. Let me get it posted up here. All right, so that's a question from Donna. Okay, so Donna's question is, shingles vaccine a good idea? I have high titers of herpes 6 and painful Lyme fatigue in arms and legs. Number 2, can Banderol cemento cause my kidneys to get worse? I had acute allergic kidney failure from rifampin in October, did dialysis for 2 months, still have high creatinine and low glomerular filtration rate, called GFR, everyone, and now cannot take any more antibiotics. Number 3, any helpful experience with pulsed electromagnetic therapy? All right, well, let me try to see if I can go through this one at a time here, Donna. Let me go back here, stop the screen share and go back. Okay, so Donna, number 1, in terms of Banderol cemento causing problems with the kidneys, I don't have any good scientific information that says they do or don't. What I can tell you, though, is based on my practical experience, I have not seen Banderol and cemento hurt anyone's kidney function before, okay? So I think you're relatively safe, but I would make sure that your doctors are checking the creatinine and something called BUN and your GFR while you're on it, maybe once a month, just to make sure that that is going okay for you. But I don't think you're going to have any problems with that, all right? Second thing of your question is you asked about the shingles vaccine. So shingles, everyone, is reactivation of the chickenpox virus, all right? And chickenpox, once we have it as kids, lives in our nerve roots and will crawl back down those nerve roots and potentially cause a very painful rash on our skin. And sometimes that painful rash can become permanent. The pain of it can become permanent even when the rash is gone. Now, the people that have the most problems with this becoming a painful, ongoing syndrome, even after the rash is gone, are people that are 65 years of age and older. And as we get older, there becomes increasing chance that we can actually get shingles, okay? So when I look at this, generally, many of you know I'm not a big advocate of doing vaccines when somebody has Lyme, especially the flu vaccine, because when we do vaccines, we see often that Lyme symptoms get worse. We think that has something to do with immune suppression caused by the vaccines. But I think when a person gets to be 65 years and older, there is greater risk from harm of getting shingles than getting harmed by doing the vaccine, all right? So if you're at a fairly good place with your Lyme treatment, in other words, you're not declining, you may be stable or even moving forward, I would say get the vaccine done. If you happen to have Lyme, though, and you're in a period of decline, I might consider holding on it until that decline has passed. And again, this is only for people 65 years of age and older that I would even consider doing that, okay? And then in terms of the pulsed electromagnetic machine, I am not familiar with that, so I'm not going to be able to comment. I am familiar with something called Rife machines, which are machines that do bounce electromagnetic frequency waves through a person. The idea is that you use a frequency that resonates with the covering of the germ, and that can burst the germ. My experience is they work about 60% of the time based on what my patients tell me. Unfortunately, the Food and Drug Administration has jailed a number of physicians that actually recommend or prescribe it, so I can't do that. But I know a number of my patients come in and they get improvement. About 60% get some benefit from it. And I actually do think this theory is a sound theory. It's just that I'm not familiar with the type of machine you're talking about, Donald. All right? Thank you for that question. All right, let's see here. So let me go ahead and post up another question here. And let me see where we go. Okay, so let's see. Bear with me here, everyone. A little bit of an awkward system, but generally at least it shows it so that you all can read it. Okay, so this is a question from Nicole. In your experience, is there any rhyme or reason that someone doesn't heal from Bartonella and falls into the 5% that does that percent equate to a large number of people? Is not herxing from treatment a bad thing for Bart or Lyme? All right, good question, Nicole. Let me go ahead and go back here. Okay, so in terms of whether herxing is a good thing or a bad thing, let me start with that part of the question first. So again, everyone, Herxheimer reaction is occurs when we start killing Lyme germs, okay? And the immune system sees the dead bug parts and also toxins that get released from inside the germ and makes a group of inflammation chemicals called cytokines. Now, cytokines are good and bad, okay? And in fact, the immune system is already making cytokines because Lyme is in you, but it makes too many when Lyme is in you. So what are cytokines? Well, they're chemicals made by white blood cells that turn white blood cells on to fight an infection. So on the good side, they help the white blood cells work better. They create more white blood cells, and they draw the white blood cells to where the infection is, okay? Now, that's all great. But in Lyme disease, the immune system does a horrible job getting rid of the germ, and eventually it makes too many cytokines. And too many cytokines make it so you can't think. They disturb the sleep centers of your brain. They make it so your hormonal systems don't work. They make you hurt. They give you fatigue. I could go down the list of Lyme symptoms, but essentially what Lyme disease symptoms are excess cytokine symptoms, okay? So in a Herxheimer reaction, what happens is the immune system sees dead Lyme parts and also sees toxins that get released from inside of the dead Lyme germs and makes too many cytokines, which makes it look like your Lyme is getting worse, but really it just means you're making more cytokines, all right? So first of all, that does not happen when you treat Bartonella. I want to say that again. Bartonella killing does not cause a herx. However, some of the antibiotics that we use to treat Bartonella treat Lyme, and that can cause a herx, okay? So, for instance, rifampin that we use for Bartonella treats Lyme. Bactrim, on the other hand, that we use to treat Bartonella does not treat Lyme, and usually you're not going to have a Herxheimer reaction from it, okay? Zithromax that we sometimes use to treat Bartonella also treats Lyme. You might have a Herxheimer reaction from that. All right, but in general, killing Bartonella itself does not trigger a Herxheimer reaction. All right. Second thing is, in my experience, about 10% of people are lucky. They don't have Herxheimer reactions during a Lyme treatment, okay? And they still get well. So you do not have to have a Herxheimer reaction to get well. Now, some of us like to wear it as a badge of honor, okay? So we get a Herxheimer reaction, we think that means the antibiotics are working, and it gives us some assurance that we're going down the right way. But I got to tell you, you don't have to have it to get better. And I think those people that don't get the herxes actually get through their treatment more easily because they're not getting knocked down so much while we treat them, okay? And then in terms, let's see, the other part of your question. So in terms, everyone that has been, if you've heard my webinars before and you've heard me talk about Bartonella, what I believe, and this is something that actually Dr. Tara Brooke, who is my partner, believes as well too, that with Bartonella, there are about 5% of people that were unable to get rid of the germ. And either in those people, the Bartonella germ will remain active and we will have to constantly leave them on antibiotics to deal with it, or we get over it, but they may eventually go back and relapse periodically, okay? Bartonella may show up every 2 years or every 3 years, for instance, all right? So when I've got somebody that has Bartonella and they have relapsed one time, one of the things I will do is I like to put a person on something called transfer factors. All right, so let me talk about transfer factors first, and then I'll tell you what you do for it, okay? So transfer factors are proteins or chemicals made by part of the immune system. And so to describe what they are, I'm going to do a Marty Ross explanation of the immune system, all right? So on the one hand, there's part of the immune system called the detectives, okay? And then there's another part called the army. I told you this is going to be very basic, okay? So the detectives are the parts of the immune system that can see an infection, they can identify what it is, and they can even tell us where it is, all right? But they don't fight the battle. What fights the battle is the army part of the immune system, but they need to be given information. And what the detectives use to give information to the army is they use these things called transfer factors, okay? So transfer factors turn the army on so it knows whether to bring a bazooka to treat Bartonella or a grenade to treat Babesia, for instance, okay? And the transfer factors even help the immune system, the army, know where to go to fight that infection. Now, sometimes in chronic Lyme or in people that get repeated Bartonella infections, there is immune suppression that makes it so that the detectives do not do a good job of seeing, of detecting that Bartonella is there, for instance, okay? So in which case, what I like to do is give transfer factors, give what they're supposed to make. There is a company called Research Nutritionals that makes a mix of transfer factors called Transfer Factor Lyme Plus. In that transfer factor mix are transfer factors against Borrelia, which is the Lyme germ, Bartonella, Babesia, 3 viruses that we sometimes see in chronic Lyme, and also Mycoplasma pneumonia and Chlamydia pneumoniae. These are other bacteria that we sometimes see in Lyme disease too. Okay, and so I usually will have my patients, if they go through one Lyme relapse, when we start treatment again, and then also when we stop treatment for Bartonella, I will have them take Transfer Factor Lyme Plus, 1 pill, 2 times a day, okay? And for those of you that are wondering where you can get that, there is actually a store, any of the supplements I recommend tonight, you can get through our online store, which is Marty Ross MD and Tara Brooke ND supplements. I will show you that later, but it's www.treatlyme.com. All right, that just happens to be where you can find that product, okay? All right, so I hope that answered your question there. And thank you for that question, Nicole. Good luck to you. All right, let's see. It looks like Jen is next with a question here. Let me go ahead and get that ready to post up here, Jen. All right. Okay, so let me just go ahead and post this so that you all can read it. All right, so this is from Jen. Hi, Dr. Ross. I have very wobbly legs that the doctor feels is due to B12 deficiency and no effect yet from a B12 injection or Gero B12 5,000 milligram tablets once a day. I have read that Lyme can deplete B12. What are your thoughts? Many thanks. Great webinars, Jen. You're welcome, Jen. All right, let me go back here. Okay, so Jen, in terms of wobbly legs, that's a good question. Um, so wobbly legs, I'm going to have to go by what your doctor is saying because I don't get the chance to examine you or ask you a bunch of questions, okay? But if B12, so what vitamin B12 can do, vitamin B12 is needed for your nerves to work effectively. It's one of the key vitamins that helps with nerve function, all right? And if you don't have adequate levels of B12, that can lead to nerve injury and inadequate function, of which some people, it can result in wobbly legs as you're describing, all right? Now, the ways that you could get B12 in, you could do it as shots, or you could do it as a pill under your tongue, all right? Now, in terms of, there are a group of people, especially if you have low B12, if your doctor checks your B12 and it is under probably about 500. Most labs say that B12 should be 250 or higher, but I have found that people do best in Lyme or in neurologic disorders, or even fatiguing disorders for that matter, if they have a B12 above 500, okay? Now, if your B12 is 250 or less though, that probably means that you're not making enough of a protein in your stomach called intrinsic factor that is supposed to help get the B12 absorbed in the intestines, all right? So if you're sitting with the B12 initially under about 250, rather than taking B12 in a pill that you swallow, you want to bypass the stomach. And the way to do that is either B12 shots or B12 under your tongue, and it dissolves under your tongue, okay? Now, I wanted to say one thing about B12 shots. The common way that B12 is given is something called cyanocobalamin. Cobalamin means B12. Cyano is cyanide, okay? Believe it or not, it's cyanide cobalamin, which just doesn't make any sense. So I don't like using cyanocobalamin. What I prefer to use is to have it mixed up by a compounding pharmacy, and I like using something called methylcobalamin, all right? Because methyl on that B12 also helps with detox pathways. The other way to do it is hydroxycobalamin, which is another way, but I like the methyl because the methyl group added to that cobalamin actually helps with detox as well too, all right? Now there's another way to do your B12. Instead of doing the pills, you can have a compounding pharmacy mix it up as drops. And so for instance, the compounding pharmacy that I use up in the Seattle area, if I call them up, I can have them mix it up so there are 3,000 micrograms of B12 per drop, and a person just does it under the tongue, gets really good absorption. I have found it to work as well as injectable B12, even for people that don't have the intrinsic factor. It works as well or better than the injectable B12 does, okay? Now let me make sure I got your question answered. Regarding your Gero B12, boy, I don't think that Gero is necessarily a good product, okay, good brand. Good brands that so let me just do my spiel about supplements. So most supplements that are out there, when independent research companies go in and pull them off the shelf, most of your lower cost brands do not have effective active ingredients in them and often will have artificial fillers that can hurt a person, okay? So when we choose supplements, and the supplements we work with here in our patients, we like to use the following brands: Thorne, Integrative Therapeutics, something called Pure Encapsulations. Actually, let me show you the brands we use, because what we have done is we take the guesswork out of it for you, okay? We have handpicked supplements that we know have good active key ingredients and also do not have artificial fillers that can hurt you, okay? And that's an issue in Lyme disease. You do not want to put more toxins in. So if you're going to spend money on supplements, make sure you're using high quality products, because number one, if you use lower quality ones, you're wasting your money probably because you're not getting effective ingredients. And even worse, you may be putting harmful fillers in you that can act as toxins in somebody in Lyme, okay? So let me just do a quick screen share here again. There we go. And let's see here. Okay, so if you're wanting to know good quality products, these are the same. This is the place where our own patients get their supplements. It's the supplements we carry here at the Healing Arts Partnership. If you're looking for an idea of what we consider to be good manufacturers, well, here's the list of what we think are some of the premium manufacturers of supplements out there, okay? You can go back and look at this later. The URL is www.treatlyme.com. Any of the products that we carry here, you can buy too, okay? So this is our online site. These are the same products our patients use. We have chosen these because we think they have the most effective ingredients. These companies source their materials for the best quality, okay? So I would not waste your money doing Jarrow. I just don't think that's a good way to go at all. All right, let me go ahead and go back here. All right, thank you for that question, Jen. All right, let's see here. No, that's not working. Okay, so the next question is going to be from Sherry. And let me go back here. All right, so let me get her question posted up. How did I do that? I don't know how I made that skinny here all of a sudden. Oh, that's interesting. All right, let's see. After being in treatment for Lyme, Babesia, and Bartonella for 2 years, my ND suggested that I retest the IGeneX Western blot, IgG, and IgM. I was initially positive on the IgM, band 3941, 8393, indeterminate, and negative on IgG. Is there any advantage to retesting? Good question. Let me go back here. Actually, let me get rid of this so this time it lines up the correct way. Bear with me here for a minute. Not sure what's going to go in there. All right. So, Sherry, so I don't think that there is a useful where are we in Lyme disease treatment test, nor do I think there is a done test in Lyme disease, okay? That test does not exist, all right? So let me tell you why I'm saying that. So the Western blot that your doctor would like to repeat again looks to see if you are making antibodies against the Lyme germ. And what she's probably thinking is if she's seeing that you're not having being as reactive to as many of the Lyme proteins. So each of those numbers, the band 39 means that there is a protein that weighs 39 kilodaltons found on the covering of the Lyme germ to which your antibodies are sticking to them, okay? So what she's probably looking to see is if you do not have antibodies against as many of the Lyme proteins, or that you're making less intense. You have 1+ instead of 3+ next to that protein, for instance, okay? But here's the issue. When you have active Lyme, there's been studies done that show during the course of treatment, even when it's truly known that Lyme is active, the antibodies will sometimes go away, even though you have a lot of Lyme in you, and sometimes those antibodies will come back. So it can go kind of up and down. Antibodies go away, they come back, they go away, they come back. All right, so checking a Western blot is not useful because if it says the antibodies are not there, that may not reflect what really is going on. The germs could still live there. It's just that the immune system has stopped making adequate antibodies. It says nothing about where you are in the course of your Lyme germ treatment, okay? Likewise, at the end of treatment, if somebody has had Lyme for a year or more, most of us that treat Lyme, myself included, do not think we ever get rid of the germ, okay? Let me say that again. Unfortunately, in this illness, when you're done being treated, for most people, we actually do not get rid of the germ, all right? So it's living in you still. The best we're going to do is get you feeling well, okay? And so in people at the end of treatment, if I were to go ahead and test to see if you have antibodies there, well, they may come back positive because I know the germ is still in you, but I'm still deciding to stop treating you because we don't get any further advantage from treating you, okay? Or if it comes back negative, it's the same argument I just made. being negative does not exclude that the germ is still in you. It just may mean that the immune system is in one of its phases where it's not making as many antibodies, all right? Now, some of my colleagues also would do something called a CD57. And a CD57 is a type of white blood cell that is low in active Lyme, about 80% of the time. But it's also low in HIV and AIDS, okay? And there may be other virus infections that cause it to go to the low side as well, too. So when it comes back low, I don't know for sure that it's from Lyme, except I know 80% of the time we will see it low in Lyme disease. Now, when that test was first developed years ago, we thought that we could follow it. And as somebody got better, they would have less immune suppression, and we would see that the CD57 would gradually rise, okay? So it would kind of go gradually up, and when it finally hit normal range, that would be a sign that we were done treating, okay? However, there have been subsequent studies that show that what happens with the CD57 is during treatment, it goes up, down, up, down, up, down, and towards the end, if it's going to, it shoots up. That's if it's going to. And most of the time, I don't see it goes back to normal even at the end of treatment, all right? Now, some of my colleagues advocate treating so your CD57 is normal because they believe that means you're not going to relapse or you have less of a chance of relapse. I will tell you there is no science that supports that. And in fact, in my experience, I used to treat people to get normal CD57s. And what I saw is that they had as great of a chance of relapsing as anyone else did. So now I do not treat until somebody has a normal CD57, okay? Now, let me go back here. So I would not do that. I want to say something. I'm going to show you two resources here. So bear with me a minute. I'm going to do a screen share. Okay, so I'm back in the Treat Lyme book here. I go to the chapters because it's easier to navigate through it that way, all right? All right, so in the testing chapter, you'll see an article called the CD57 test, and I say rarely. I rarely do it. I do not find it to be helpful, but if you want more information about what I just said, go ahead and read this article, okay? All right, and then the other chapter I want to show you, let me go back here, is a chapter about being done. Let me see, where are we? End of treatment is what it's called. All right, and you may want to take a look at this one. I call it graduation day, by the way, which is why you're seeing the mortar boards here. Anyhow, and I like graduation day with my patients. So there's two articles you might want to look at. One is, well, three actually. Is there a Lyme done test? No, I just said that, so you can come back and look at that later. The other one is finished, all right? And finished, in here, I talk about when do we decide somebody's done with treatment, okay? And so take a look at this. You could read this later. But basically, when I decide that somebody's done with treatment, it's either that they're completely well for 2 months, or we've hit a great plateau and there isn't anything I can do to move their treatment forward, okay? So at the end of treatment, I want to work to prevent relapse, okay? And in this article, I tell you what to do for that. I'm going to not take the time to answer it now, but take a look at it later. These are the steps in this article that you should take to prevent a Lyme relapse, okay? All right, let me go back here. All right, so Sherry, thank you for that question. Hello, Kathy. Let's see here. Go back. All right, I'm going to post Kathy's question up here. Just a minute. All right. Well, I thought I was going to. Let me try that again. Well, I must have not grabbed it. Hold on here just a minute, everyone. Yes, I know your screen looks very weird right now. Hold on just a minute. All right, let's try this again. See if I can get this thing to paste up here. There we are. Okay, hello, Kathy. Let's see. have you heard of treating Lyme with essential oils? What do you think? Okay, so let me go back here and I'll give you my thoughts on that. All right, so in Lyme disease, every year that I have treated this illness, there becomes the it treatment of the year, okay? So you can tell where this is going. All right, so the it treatment of the last 6 months or so is essential oils to treat Lyme, all right? That is the current buzz. Everyone's trying it, all right? But I've seen other years where everyone was trying something else too. And so I'll talk to you about it, but I try not to follow the latest fads because I want to see before I try it with many of my patients that it works in a few, all right? So essential oils are also known as volatile oils, and any oil, whether it's rosemary oil, thyme oil, clove oil, any oils that a person has, anything that is a volatile oil can kill germs, all right? So for instance, tea tree oil is good for fungus infections. It also treats bacteria too. Rosemary and thyme oil are good for treating yeast, for instance, okay? And so there is a company called doTERRA that has a lot of faithful marketers. It's a tier marketing system, okay? So keep that in mind. These people are marketing products, all right? And some of them have written great articles purporting that these essential oils will treat all aspects of Lyme disease, okay? So I'm a little suspicious when I see people that are doing a tier marketing system, number one. Secondly, I've looked through a number of the protocols that are out there, and I'm not sure that it makes sense, all right? And then third, what I have seen is that some people do get benefit, but I think that benefit is short-lived. I don't think it is going to give long-term benefit. And so when I look at the essential oils, I think there's something else you can try, but I don't think they're going to render a cure. I do think they may give benefit, but I think that's going to be short-lived, and I think that's for most people. But I don't think you're going to hurt yourself by trying it either, okay? So, yeah, but just be cautious. I mean, this is the thing that everyone is writing about in the Lyme boards right now. And I'm going to say, if it's too good to be true, it's too good to be true, okay? This is a complex illness, and it is not as simple as taking essential oils that you can manage on your own. I just want you to know that, all right? I think you'd do better if you're looking for ways to manage your Lyme on your own to follow the approaches we have in our Treat Lyme book. And as many of you know, the Treat Lyme book has all kinds of self-help treatment protocols that you can do on your own for various Lyme conditions, all right? So if you have nausea in Lyme, we have an article about what you can do about nausea in Lyme. And if you want to know the steps you should take to get rid of Lyme, we have something called the Successful Treatment Recipe, where we tell you the steps you can take, most of it on your own without having a prescribing doctor. And the things we write about are based upon the success we see in our practice, okay? So these are not somebody's idea of what might work. These are approaches in our Treat Lyme book that do work, okay? And we introduce them to you so you can put those in place yourself. So let me show you, I've mentioned a number of times tonight the Successful Treatment Recipe, which I think you would do better doing if you want to go ahead and manage your Lyme. Instead of doing essential oils, I probably would look at under our Lyme treatment guidelines here, which is the Successful Treatment Recipe, okay? You can read through all this later, everyone, but I'm just gonna show you what we have in here. So the Successful Treatment Recipe is designed to boost your immune system, speed your recovery, kills infections, and protects and repairs from the harmful effects of Lyme, okay? All right, now, we tell you things you can do for sleep, all right? So you wanna get sleep. Sleep lowers inflammation cytokines and restores the immune system, okay? You wanna lower cytokines, and tonight earlier I told everyone what cytokines are. If you missed that, listen to the recording tomorrow. And what we like to do that is to use curcumin, which comes from turmeric, the Indian seasoning. You want to do 1 pill 3 times a day, all right? Lowering cytokines helps boost the immune system. Number 3, be on an herb that helps your body deal with stress, and that's ashwagandha. We tell you how to do that here. Correct hormone problems, all right? And so you're wondering, how do I figure out if I have a hormone problem? Well, you'll have the symptoms down here. I'm just circling. Take a look at those symptoms later to see if you have many of those, okay? Be on a good multivitamin. Treat yeast if you have it, okay? And many people, because of immune suppression, have too many yeast living in their intestines. To figure out if you have too many yeast, do our yeast screening questionnaire right here. I'm moving my mouse over it right now, okay? Treat your Lyme infection, and we even give you our favorite herbal approach to do that, which is Otoba bark extract and cat's claw, otherwise known as Banderol and Cemento. These work 85 to 90% of the time based on our experience, which is as good as any prescription antibiotic protocol, all right? Next thing you want to do is do some good detox, and we tell you some basic steps here. In addition, you can look at our Lyme Detoxification 101, the basics article, and then treat your co-infections, okay? So take a look at this. Before you start thinking about doing essential oil protocols, I would really take a look and make sure that you're doing a comprehensive protocol that we know works, okay, based on our clinical experience here. And I understand why people would go for essential oils. I do think some people do get benefit, but I don't think it is as great as what the authors of those protocols that are trying to sell tier marketing systems that are getting great financial benefit from it too. All right, so I'd be careful with that. All right, let me go ahead and move on here. Thank you for that question. All right. So Todd, I see that you're here, and I know you wrote me a comment on the Facebook page. So yeah, I'd be glad to help. I think I left you the telephone number there if you want to get in contact with us here, okay? All right. All right, let's see. All right, so we got a question from Nancy here. All right, bear with me here. Okay, so this is from Nancy, everyone. And Nancy says, what kind of cardiac problems do you see in your Lyme patients? That's a good question. Let me go back here. So it isn't just what I see, it's probably what people see in Lyme in general, all right? So one of the things that Lyme does, Lyme germs like to infect the electrical systems in our bodies, okay? So that would be nerves, which is an electrical signaling system that sends nerve transmissions, okay? It also likes to infect the heart, the electrical system of the heart that controls whether the heart beats or not, okay? So people can get heart rhythm problems with Lyme. Sometimes they can get electrical blocks of the heart so the heart even stops beating because it can't transmit the electrical signals, okay? Now, Lyme also affects muscles, and it makes them so they don't work well, all right? So the heart muscle the heart is a big muscle. And so it is possible when you have Lyme that you could even get congestive heart failure, which is the heart doesn't pump well enough, and you start getting blood backing up into the lungs, and it becomes a situation where you just don't get enough oxygen, all right? So that can happen too. Sometimes you can get inflammation of the sac that covers the heart. And so you can get something called that, and that sac that covers the heart is called a pericardium. And you can get inflammation of that sac, and that is called pericarditis, all right? And then finally, Lyme affects a nerve that makes the heart work called the vagal nerve, okay? And the vagal nerve is part of the adrenaline, anti-adrenaline system. And specifically, the vagal nerve is anti-adrenaline, all right? Or we call that the parasympathetic nervous system. Now, if the vagal nerve is infected by Lyme, you can often get problems with the nervous system allowing for low blood pressure to occur. And so when people stand up, their heart may not be able to beat fast enough to put blood into the blood vessels that get dilated, and so people pass out, okay? So the heart may not work, cannot pump strong enough, or may not be able to beat fast enough to make up for blood vessels that get dilated, causing low blood pressure. And that's become something we call POTS. Some of you may have heard of something called POTS, where you get low blood pressure on standing up or moving around, you faint easily, okay? And one of the reasons for that is the way the vagal nerve affects how the heart works, and that the heart will not speed up adequately because of infection of the vagal nerve, all right? So yeah, those are the conditions I would see with the heart primarily, Nancy. Thank you for that question. All right, let's see. Let's take one from Debbie here. So let me go ahead and do another screen share. All right, so this is from Debbie, everyone. Let's see. Hi, Dr. Ross. I have had buzzing or vibration sensations in my upper torso. Have you seen this in your practice? And if so, is it indicative of Lyme or Bartonella? As treatment has progressed for 7 months, it has gotten much better. When do I know when to stop treatment? Mahalo. All right. I guess you're in Hawaii with that mahalo, Debbie. All right, let me go back here. That's a good question, by the way. Okay, everyone, so buzzing sensations. Debbie's having it in her chest. Some people actually describe internal buzzing sensations as well, too. So buzzing is a neurologic symptom, and it's something that you can see as part of Lyme, and you can also see it as part of Bartonella, all right? In terms of what to do about it, well, treat your Lyme, treat your Bartonella if Bartonella is there. And the other thing you can do, one of the things that can help it is the nutrient element called lithium, all right? And it's sold as something called lithium orotate, that's O-R-O-T-A-T-E. You would use it as a 5 milligram pill 3 times a day. Now, many of you know about lithium because we also use it to treat psychiatric conditions like bipolar illness or manic depression, all right? Now, when we use lithium in those situations, we use it as 600 to 900 milligrams a day in an adult. That's not how I'm talking to use lithium here. But lithium is an essential element for nerves. And once the nerves get lithium, it can really calm an agitated nervous system, a buzzing nervous system, okay? Lithium has another advantage in that it can help your thinking, all right? So lithium is great to help with thinking as well. It helps the nerves talk together better. We call that nerve signaling, and they do that fairly well, okay? Now, how do you know when you're done treating? Well, typically a Bartonella treatment is going to be about 4 to 6 months. On average, to recover from Lyme, on the other hand, is about 2 years, okay? So how do you decide if you need to keep treating Bartonella? Well, let me do a quick screen share here so I can tell you how I make that decision. All right, so we're back in on our information site, Treat Lyme and Associated Diseases. I'm going to go back to the Treat Lyme book, all right? And let's see, what do I want to do here? I think what we're going to do is look at the symptoms, okay? So there's a chapter we have called Symptoms. And I hope we have what I think it is. Yep, okay. So there's an article we have called It Could Be Bartonella or Babesia, the Symptoms and Signs, okay? So in here, what you're going to see is that I don't, Dr. Tara Brooke doesn't, we do not recommend testing for Babesia or Bartonella. Now, I know a lot of my colleagues do it, but I got to tell you, I think they're wasting money. And the reason is, when you have Bartonella, we estimate 30 strains, and we can only do decent testing for 2. When you have Babesia, we estimate 15 to 20 strains. We can only do decent testing for 2. So I don't waste money testing. I look at what the symptoms tell me, okay? And if there's enough symptoms suggesting Bartonella or enough symptoms suggesting Babesia, then I think you should treat for those. And I find that you get benefit doing that, okay? So how do you know if your Bartonella is doing better? Well, you make sure that your Bartonella symptoms are going away or that they're mostly gone, all right? So Bartonella symptoms are day sweats, ongoing anxiety, pain on the soles of the feet, swollen lymph nodes, a rash that looks like stretch marks, severe brain dysfunction, neurologic symptoms of numbness, sharp, shooting, stabbing, or burning pain, abdominal pain, bladder symptoms of pain, or needing to go frequently, and then various psychiatric problems like anxiety and depression, okay? So look to see which ones of these you had at the beginning of treatment, and if they're mostly gone and you've treated Bartonella for about 4 to 6 months, you probably are done treating your Bartonella, okay? That's what I find is an adequate length of time, all right? All right, now I want to show you one other thing. So I'm often asked, how long do I need to treat, and am I going to get better, okay? So we have a whole chapter devoted to that. It's called Recovery Time and Odds. And in here, you may want to take a look at the article called Getting Healthy, Will I, When, How Do I, okay? So this answers the other part of your question, which is how long do you need to treat Lyme? Well, an average length of a Lyme disease treatment, and I'll tell you about it, but take a look at this article later, okay? Okay, so when it comes to treating Lyme, an average length of treatment is 2 years. Some people are actually on the 3 to 4 year treatment plan. Some people are on the 6-month treatment plan. And there is no way of knowing at the beginning who's going to take how long. There are no predictors. So it doesn't matter how long somebody has had it or how sick they are. In fact, one of the sickest patients I've had is a person that had it for 20 years. We treated him for 6 months and he was 95% better, okay? And I've seen people that have minimal symptoms that have had the illness for maybe a year or less, well, actually a year or more, slightly more than a year, and they have taken 3 to 4 years to get well sometimes, okay? So these are averages, all right? And then with treatment, 90% of people get help, 10% don't. We don't know why. And then in terms of how quickly do you turn around with a Lyme disease treatment, there is one unpublished study that shows that by 3 months, 30% of people start having noticeable improvement. By 6 months, 60%, and by 9 months, 90% of people do, okay? So in terms of, I think a second part of your question, how long do you treat? Well, for Lyme, you want to treat until you're well, ideally. So you want to treat until you're completely well for 2 months, if you can. All right, but if you don't get completely well, then treat until you're really at a good plateau for at least 4 months, and then it's probably time to stop treating, okay? All right, thank you, Debbie. Give that lithium a try. It's really good for buzzing of the nerves, everyone. All right, let's see here. All right, this next question is from Emily. And let me get it posted up here, everyone. All right, so let's see here, get that up. All right, so this is from Emily, everyone. Let's see, I've been in treatment for about 6 months. Lately, the pain has been so bad that nothing seems to touch it, including hydrocodone. I start a new job in 2 days. Any tips for pain management? Okay. So your pain is burning, achy, and whole body pain. All right, let me go back here. Thank you for that question, Emily. All right, so first of all, because you use the word lately, it suggests to me, and I may be wrong, but I'm going to answer part of the question this way anyhow. When people say lately, that means that something has gotten worse for them, okay? So if your pain is worsening after you've been going through a better period, the big thing to think about in Lyme is too many yeast growing in the intestines, okay? So as you know, and as I've said here tonight, everyone, what Lyme disease symptoms are actually symptoms of excess cytokines, right? Okay, so that's what I have told everyone, okay? Now, or that's what I mentioned to everyone earlier tonight, okay? So that's what Lyme disease symptoms actually are excess cytokine symptoms, all right? Now, if you've got something else causing more cytokines to be made, it can make it look like your Lyme got worse, like your pain got worse, your fatigue got worse, your brain stopped working as well, okay? And the number one reason people start getting increased cytokines as they treat Lyme is that too many yeast start growing in the intestines. When the immune system sees too many yeast in the intestines, it overproduces cytokines, all right? And in my experience, 90% of the time that somebody does worse after doing better it means that yeast moved in, all right? Now, symptoms that might make you think about yeast include having more sugar cravings, or having something like breads or potatoes or obvious sugar and feeling worse afterwards, intestinal gasiness and bloating. If you're a woman, having vaginal yeast infections or vaginal itching. Also, people can have difficulty swallowing because yeast can live in the food pipe, makes it feel like things are getting stuck in the food pipe too. Or if you have white patches in your mouth, that can be yeast too, okay? If you have any one of these or more, and you've gotten worse, you probably have yeast. And so I'd start treating your yeast, okay? And so I'll show you in a minute the ways that you can treat yeast. Actually, I'll tell you about them here in a second, but you want to treat yeast, okay? Now, the other thing, if that's not your problem, some things that you can do for pain management when you have Lyme disease, I'm going to show you an article on that you can take a look at later too, all right? So let me do a quick screen share here. All right, so we're back in the Lyme book here again. I'm going to go ahead and look through our chapters again. There's a chapter we have on pain, okay? All right, so in this chapter, at this point, I have not put up pharmaceutical options, so I'm going to tell you about natural options first. You can take a look at this article, okay? But in terms of pain, you want to lower inflammation cytokines. One way is get yeast out if they're there, okay? But the other thing that you can do is to use an herb called Echinacea cava, which actually the herbs I like to use is curcumin or quercetin, okay? And I'll tell you more about these in a minute, or actually let me talk about these. Quercetin is a chemical that comes from the skin of colorful fruits and vegetables, okay? And curcumin comes from turmeric, the Indian seasoning turmeric. Both of these work inside of white blood cells to block cytokine production, okay? The other thing you might want to do if you're getting a lot of achy pain is to try to improve blood flow to your tissues. And you can do that by either heating up, like with infrared saunas, or taking hot baths, or you can make it so your blood is a little bit thinned out by using an enzyme called lubrikinase, okay? The other thing for your other pain, your non-achy pain, most of the other pain you talked about there, sharp, shooting, stabbing, burning, that's neurologic pain. And what can help with neurologic pain, my favorite is L-theanine. L-theanine is a component of green tea that is turned into a chemical called GABA, all right? And GABA helps soothe agitated, painful nerves, all right? So my basic approach would be to start with the curcumin 500 milligrams, 1 pill 3 times a day. And I'd also consider using quercetin if that's not getting better well enough on its own, okay? For achy muscle pain, I'd also add in magnesium, which relaxes muscles, and I would use lubrikinase, which is an enzyme found in earthworms that decreases sticky blood. And if you have primarily nerve pain, which has qualities of sharp, stabbing, burning, piercing, or electric, you would use L-theanine, 100 milligram pill, and you would take anywhere from 1 to 3 pills 3 times a day, okay? So those are the herbal options, all right? Prescriptively for nerve pain, you could also consider using something called gabapentin. You could consider using low doses of antidepressant medicines like dizipramine or imipramine or amitriptyline. One thing also about pain, make sure that you're getting sleep. 7 to 9 hours of sleep a night actually decreases cytokine production, which can help with pain as well too. And also people with pain, no matter what the reason is, even if there isn't cytokines involved, when you get sleep, pain levels will go down. So 7 to 9 hours of sleep. If you're looking for ideas on what you can do to get sleep, let me just show you that one real quick. And go back to the Treat Lyme book here. All right, so again, most of the things you might have questions about, and we're still adding articles, but most of the things you might have questions about Lyme disease, you will find somewhere within our chapters here in the Treat Lyme book, okay? So in terms of sleep, we actually have a whole chapter on it. And it's actually this is pretty much a complete chapter at this point, okay? We tell you basic steps to take to get sleep. We even describe prescription medicine approaches and natural medicine approaches, okay? So if you're not getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep and you got pain, look here. And actually, if you have Lyme and you're not getting 7 to 9 hours of sleep, look here, okay? You want to get 7 to 9 hours of sleep in Lyme because getting sleep helps restore your immune system, and also getting sleep lowers those inflammatory cytokines, all right? All right, Emily, thank you for your question. Let's see here. I mean, some people have written their questions twice, which doesn't help me, but I have to go through it and see what sense I can make out of it. Okay, so this next question is from Sue, and it's a little bit of a longer question. I haven't actually had a chance to read it. I can just tell by what's been written here. It's got a longer length. Let me go back here. All right, so let me get this one posted up. Okay, so this is from Sue. I suspect it's going to wind up enlarging to about 2 pages. Let's see here. We'll just make it a little bit smaller. All right, so Sue says, thank you, Dr. Ross, for taking my question. I was on a, oh, you're welcome, by the way. I was on a Lyme treatment from October through January. I had to take December off, taking Omnicef, 2 tablets twice daily, Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 2 weeks. Then a week off, Minicin 100 milligrams twice daily, same schedule. Azithromycin 500 milligrams twice daily, same schedule. February, I started a Babesia treatment. Omnicef 300 milligrams, 2 tablets twice a day, daily Monday, Wednesday, Friday for 2 weeks, then off. Minicin 100 milligrams twice daily, same schedule, and Mepron 2 teaspoons twice daily, same schedule. Artemisinin 600 milligrams twice daily, same schedule. I'm concerned about my ACTH and cortisol. October 2014 ACTH was 149.5 and cortisol 26.6. January ACTH 184.6, cortisol 24.1, and March ACTH 206 and cortisol 25.5. What do you recommend? I'm going in for a brain MRI to look at the pituitary. Many thanks for all you do. All right, so let me go. I could make comments here about your treatment, but I'm not going to. I'm going to just focus on the hormonal issues, okay? So let me go back here. All right, Sue, thank you for that question. Okay, so everyone, hormone testing in Lyme disease is a little bit difficult, and let me explain why. So there is a control center for our hormones called the hypothalamus pituitary. It's part of the brain, okay? And it is the governor, the director of the hormones. So it talks to your thyroid gland, which sits here, and says, make thyroid hormone, okay? It talks in a female to the ovaries and says, make estrogen and progesterone. It talks to your adrenal glands, which stay on top of the kidneys, and it says, make cortisol and make DHEA, okay? And it also talks, in terms of how it talks to the adrenals, it makes a chemical called ACTH, which is what it uses to tell the adrenals to make cortisol, all right? Now, there is a problem. Remember I said Lyme disease is actually a syndrome of excess cytokines, right? Okay, so the hypothalamus pituitary, in effect, in Lyme disease, gets drunk. That's right, I said it. The hypothalamus pituitary gets drunk on cytokines, okay? Now that's a metaphor, but like a drunk, we cannot trust what it says, all right? So what it's supposed to do is it's supposed to measure blood levels of cortisol, and it's supposed to say, oh, I don't think there's enough cortisol. I'm going to scream at the adrenals to make more cortisol, okay? But the problem is, because it's drunk on cytokines, it does not do a correct interpretation. And so the ACTH levels that are being made, the ACTH that it uses to scream or whisper at the adrenals, it's hard to say what it means. That level could either be high or low in reality. So the ACTH to me is meaningless, okay? Because it's made by a drunk. and the drunk doesn't get it right, okay? On the other hand, cortisol, if your cortisol is sitting above about 22, that is getting to be a little high, but cortisol is the stress hormone, all right? Your adrenals make it when they get under stress, and thankfully they seem to be making a high amount, which means they're responding to your stress, all right? Now, I can understand if you have had persistently high cortisol and even a very elevated ACTH that your doctors might want to do an MRI to see if there's any tumors in the hypothalamus pituitary, all right? However, what I want to say, I would do this too, but I suspect the problem is that your hypothalamus pituitary is erroneously making ACTH, and that level that you're testing for actually is an anomaly. It doesn't truly reflect what is happening with your hormonal systems, okay? All right. So good luck to you, and I hope that answers your question. All right, let's see. Next one is from Kathy here. All right, so we're back here on our question page. Let me get this posted up so everyone can see it. All right, Kathy, thank you for your question. Let's see, I've been treated for Lyme and Babesia decani. I had a positive Babesia fish test and my Babesia decani IgM of 80. I take Malarone 100 milligrams 2 times a day. I don't have typical symptoms of Babesia other than vivid dreaming. I was wondering if the dreaming is a sign of Babesia or a reaction to medications. Thanks. That's a good question. Let me go back here. All right, so let me just say one thing about what Kathy wrote here. So she did have positive Babesia testing, all right? And what a fish test is, everyone, is a microscopic exam of your blood after a fluorescing agent that attaches to the DNA of Babesia has been applied, okay? So it's a way that we can see Babesia under the microscope. And clearly here it was positive, so it definitely means that you had Babesia in you, all right? Now the fact that the IgM is elevated at 80 means it's a small elevation, but I would treat for Babesia there too. All right, now in terms of symptoms, again, to make sure you don't have symptoms of Babesia, go through my Babesia symptom list that I had earlier in the article called It Could Be Lyme, or It Could Be Bartonella or Babesia, the Signs and Symptoms. In there, I gave a detailed list about what symptoms are Babesia, but everyone, those symptoms are panic attacks can be part of it. People can have severe frontal headaches, headaches in the front of the head. They can have air hunger. They can have racing and skipping of the heart. And they can actually have drenching sweats at nighttime. If you have any number of those, it can mean that you have Babesia. Also, Babesia gives you just severe fatigue, all right? And then finally, the most peculiar Babesia symptom is that sometimes people with Babesia have frequent deja vu experiences, okay? So, Kathy, look back and see what of those you might have had, okay? Vivid dreaming is not something I would think about, though. And if it started after you began Malarone, atovaquone, which is one of the active ingredients in Malarone, along with proquinol, which is a quinine-like medicine, both can agitate the nervous system, and they may be giving you that vivid dreaming, okay? And in fact, if your Babesia is getting better and you can tolerate the vivid dreaming, I'd probably just leave you on the Malarone. But if that vivid dreaming is very disturbing to you, and if your Babesia isn't getting well enough, I might consider changing you to another Babesia drug, okay? All right, thank you for that question, Kathy. And again, if you're looking for options to treat Babesia, remember I showed you earlier tonight, we have a whole article in the Treat Lyme book about that, okay? All right, let's see here. All right, next question is from Linda. Let's see here, get that copied. All right, let me get her question put up here, everyone. All right. All right, Linda, let's see. I've been in treatment for Lyme, Barton, and Babesia for the past 1.5 years. Medical findings of the onset of my treatment were elevated C-reactive protein, an MRI with white matter lesions, peripheral neuropathy concluded from an EMG with possible lumbar radiculopathy. Lately, I have been repeatedly waking up in the middle of the night with complete numbness in one or the other arm. If I hold up my arm, the numbness goes away within 15 seconds and I can feel my arm again. The experience scares me a little as my thoughts go to the possibility that the autoimmunity aspect of my illness is worsening. I don't know what to make of this new development. Do you have any insights for me? Okay. All right. So let me see. That's one arm. So it's in one or the other arm. Okay. Let me go back here. Thank you for that question, by the way, Linda. All right, so that's a little bit of a perplexing problem, all right? As you know, I mean, you're the one that's having to experience it, obviously. So in terms of this, the fact that it's happening, I think you said it's happening at night when you sleep. Actually, let me look back here, make sure about that. Hold on a minute. Yeah. Waking. Okay, yep, this is happening with you when you sleep. Okay, so the fact that it's happening at sleep tells me it is something to do with the position you're sleeping in, causing your nerves to get pinched, okay? Now, the classic areas that nerves can get pinched are here at the wrist. There's a big nerve called the median nerve that runs here, and if we sleep like this at nighttime, sometimes that nerve gets pinched. It's usually going to give you numbness on this side of the hand through about the fourth finger, okay? So going this way will not give you numbness on the back of the hand. There's another nerve that runs right here called the radial nerve that gives you a sensation on this side of the hand, okay? So if you sleep a lot like this at night, that's gonna get you numbness of the whole hand potentially, all right? Another thing is if you sleep at night kind of crimped like this, a big nerve that runs under here, the ulnar nerve, can get pinched. That's going to give you numbness through here, all right? Or if you're sleeping at night with your arms above your head or back like this, you may get pinching of the nerves at a big nerve junction under the armpit, okay? But for whatever reason, it sounds like there is a positional problem that is occurring, causing those nerves to get compressed. One of the things that Lyme does, Lyme can cause nerves to swell, and so when they go through narrow openings, like these areas I just showed you, that can lead to pinching. One of the things that you might want to do is make sure that you're doing a good anti-inflammatory, and that would be to use curcumin. I've mentioned that a number of times tonight. 500 milligrams, one pill 3 times a day. Make sure it is a liposomal variety, which means it's microscopically wrapped in fat. And for that, we usually like working with a product made by Thorne called Mariva 500, okay? And if you've read our site, you know that we consider curcumin to be essential for most aspects of what you're doing when you treat Lyme disease, okay? The other thing that I would do if you are sleeping like this, if it's mainly your hands, you want to get something called a cock-up wrist splint. You probably have seen these in the stores before. They have, they go into the palm of the hand. They have Velcro wraps that go around, okay? That keeps your arms from doing this at night. Sleep like that at night. If it is the whole arm from here going numb, you could work with your doctor to make something called an ulnar splint, which will make it so you can't sleep with your arm bent like this, but more at an angle like that. Okay. Anyhow, the other thing is you might want to talk with a physical therapist who might be able to figure out what you are doing that possibly is pressing on those nerves in terms of how your sleeping is going. Okay. So good luck to you. I hope that gives you some insights at least. All right. Let's see. All right, next question is from Elizabeth here. Let me make a copy of that. All right, so let's see here. Okay, so Elizabeth, what is it here? All right, so what do you think of Septra, Ceftonir, and Minicin for Lyme, Bartonella, and Mycoplasma pneumonia treatment? I have been on Ceftonir and Zithromax. Okay, so let me go back here. Okay, so Elizabeth, Ceftonir is going to work on Lyme only. It is not an effective agent against Bartonella, nor is it an effective agent against Mycoplasma, okay? Everyone, Mycoplasma pneumoniae is a bacteria that is common in healthy people, all right? I don't even bother treating it in Lyme because if it is active in Lyme, getting Lyme under control will decrease immune suppression that happens to allow for Mycoplasma that is common in about 80, well, probably about 15, 20% of the population, anyone that's healthy. 20% of people probably have Mycoplasma pneumoniae in them. The issue in Lyme is because of immune suppression, it can sometimes get active, okay? So the way you deal with it is treat Lyme, which decreases the immune suppression. In addition, the antibiotics that we use to treat intracellular Lyme will also work against Mycoplasma pneumonia, okay? So, for instance, Minicin is an intracellular antibiotic. Zithromax is an intracellular antibiotic. Septra is an intracellular antibiotic, okay? Those all will treat Mycoplasma and also will treat Bartonella too. I usually like using a combination of 2 anti-Bartonella drugs at the same time. So if Septra, which is a sulfa antibiotic, also known as Bactrim here in the States, and Minicin together treat Bartonella, that would be a good Bartonella treatment, okay? When you were doing Zithromax by itself, because it was a single agent that might help treat Bartonella, that was not an adequate Bartonella treatment, all right? So let me go here. Now, Bactrim I wouldn't use to treat Lyme. Ceftonir treats spirochete Lyme. Minicin treats intracellular and spirochete Lyme. Ceftonir, Zithromax treats intracellular and spirochete Lyme too, all right? So let me show you, I'm going to do a screen share here again. All right, so we're back in the Treat Lyme book, and let me see what I want to do here. So I'm going to go to the chapters, and there is an article that I have written. I'll find it here in the infection treatment plan section, all right, which is where you can come to figure out how we treat the various germs. And there is an article that I wrote called Kills Bartonella, a Brief Guide. And in here, I'll let you read it yourself later, I talk about the need to treat Bartonella by boosting the immune system. Just like I said earlier, to get rid of Lyme, you need to boost the immune system. Just like I said earlier, to get rid of Babesia, you need to boost the immune system by following the 9 steps of this, the first 9 steps in our successful treatment recipe, okay? In addition, to get rid of Bartonella, I find people do best if we use 2 antibiotics at the same time, okay? So take a look here. I break my treatments down into what's called Tier 1 treatments and Tier 2 treatments and even Tier 3 treatments, okay? Take a look and you'll see the various ways that I go about this, all right? So read this later as part of the Treat Lyme book. All right, so Elizabeth, thank you for that question. All right, so next question is from Mary Lee. Let me see here. Bear with me here, everyone, as I try to get this pulled up. All right, so okay, this is a question from Mary Lee. Let's see, I had Lyme and was treated with 6 weeks of IV Rocephin 2 summers ago. I am much improved and mostly feel great, but I have since discovered that I have an immune problem, possibly common variable immune deficiency. Do you think the Lyme may have triggered the immune problem? What are your thoughts on IVIG? All right. So that's a good question. So it is very possible that Lyme, boy, I'm turning up very yellow there. Let me see something here. I'm sorry, I'm looking so yellow. Hold on here a minute. I don't want to look yellow. Try that here. All right, let me go back here again and see if I'm not going to be yellow this time. There we go. I'm not yellow. So Lyme can trigger autoimmune illnesses, okay? So it can trigger situations where the immune system acts against itself. It is possible that not making adequate levels of or having common variable immune deficiency, which means you're not making enough antibodies, could be triggered by another part of the immune system turning against the antibody producing part of the immune system. It's possible. So yes, Lyme could have triggered that. However, it may have just happened on its own and have nothing to do with Lyme, okay? I think if you have very low antibody levels, that IVIG can be quite helpful and may help prevent a Lyme relapse in the future as well too, okay? The other thing you might want to take a look at, Mary Lee, just to see if it makes a difference, is to try something called low-dose naltrexone, which is a way of regulating an overactive immune system that attacks itself, okay? And we're a little short on time tonight. I'm just going to show you where you can find that article. Let me go here. This is something you can read on your own later. All right, so this is an article found in the immune system chapter. And it is called on low-dose naltrexone, does it help, okay? In fact, there's going to be a more extensive article, video article that I should have posted later tomorrow, possibly, if I can get to it early tomorrow morning, that is more extensive than just this low-dose naltrexone article. But take a look at this. This is a good starting place that tells you about low-dose naltrexone and how it can regulate an overactive immune system that's attacking the body, okay? All right. So let me stop sharing there. All right, thank you for that question. Okay, so this next question is from Michelle. Michelle, let's see here. And bear with me here. Huh, that doesn't look like it did what I wanted it to. Let me go back here a minute. I know your screen is going to look crazy here, everyone. All right, let's try this again. Well, I'm not getting Michelle's question to post, and I don't want to spend a lot of time trying to get it to post. So let me read it, and then we'll just read it out loud and do it. Let's see. What do you think the biggest reasons, other than infection and unidentified co-infections, ongoing treatment is needed? Do you think low immunoglobulin levels are a big factor? If so, what helps boost these levels? Boy, that's a big question, actually, Michelle. So I think what Michelle is asking is, why is it that it takes so long to get rid of Lyme? I think, and there's many ways I can go with this question, and we're about 6:30 here already. Michelle, what I would tell you, and also anyone whose treatment is blocked, and it just seems like you're going to be treating on and on, is take a look at a chapter we have on what to do when your treatment is blocked and it's not going forward, okay? Let me do a quick screen share here and I'll show that chapter to you. All right, so this is our chapter. We have a chapter called Can't Get Better, Do This. All right, and take a look here. We tell you to follow the successful treatment recipe as the core of what you do. And then we tell you some things that you might want to start thinking of if your treatment's not going forward, okay? This is a whole chapter with articles that go with it, all right? So let me go back here. Okay. So Michelle, the other part of your question is, why is it that people can't get well? Well, there's a lot of factors that add up together to give a person Lyme disease. And one of those are genetic factors that make it so the immune system does work well or doesn't work well. Another set of problems can be how you're set up to handle toxins made by Lyme, but also toxins from the environment. There's a whole host of reasons that somebody may have a harder time getting well than another person. And you want to take a look at all those factors I just said are the steps you might want to do if you're not getting better. But I'm also going to show you, this is our last screen share here, I'm going to show you one more article I think that gives good background as to why this is such a complex illness and why in some people it can just take a long time to get well, all right? And it's found in our chapter called About Lyme Disease. And the article is called, What is Lyme Disease? A Mess of Things, okay? And so you're going to see a whole table we have here. There's actually an article you can read too, okay? But if you see in the middle there is disease, and then there's a bunch of stuff that add up to cause it, of which Lyme is one of those things, but how your immune system works is another, okay? And there's a genetic basis behind that. Whether you get sleep, whether you can exercise, how you deal with various toxins, including emotional toxins, okay? Were you a kid that was abused, either sexually or physically? That might cause emotional problems that makes it so that your disease is harder to treat, for instance, okay? But there's many things that add together to give you Lyme disease, all right? And all of these occur differently in different people. All right, everyone, that is it tonight. And I know there's many questions still left here, but that's all I can get through. I hope that you found this all helpful. And I look forward, we're going to take a week off next week, and then I'll be back again in April doing more of these webinars, okay? And I appreciate you all showed up here. You will get a, you're going to get an email from me tomorrow morning that gives you information about how to watch the recording from tonight. I would also appreciate if you're interested in what we're doing and want to get access to all the great articles we have in the Treat Lyme book. We have over about 70 of them now. In that book, I think you can find information about how to treat every problem you have in Lyme disease, or most of them. And most of them, we give you herbal options, so you don't even have to talk to your doctor. You're not relying on somebody. These are steps you can take on your own, and they work, okay? We did not just put these out for no reason at all. All right, so take a look at our book. If you have not subscribed to the Treat Lyme book, it's time to do it so that you can get access to these articles, okay? And here in a moment, you're going to be taken there. I look forward to seeing everyone next week. And please subscribe to the book so you get all the great information and you help support further development of this information for you and others too. All right. Take care, everyone. Good night.